Royal Caribbean just became the most booked cruise line on the planet, and most of those passengers have no idea what they actually agreed to. I don't mean that in a conspiratorial way. I mean it in the completely literal, documented, the contract is 47 pages long and nobody reads page 31 kind of way. The ships are real, the fun is real, the Caribbean sunsets are absolutely real. But the financial structure layered underneath a Royal Caribbean vacation has gotten significantly more complicated in the last 3 years, and the gap between what people think they're paying and what they actually end up paying has never been wider. I've spent the last 4 months going through Royal Caribbean's entire active fleet, all 28 ships, cross-referencing their booking terms, their onboard, fee structures, passenger review patterns, across more than 12,000 documented trips, and the actual fine print buried in their standard cruise ticket contract. What I found isn't a scandal. It's something quieter and more frustrating than that. It's a system that's been carefully designed so that the moment you realize what's happening, you're already committed. This ranking is going to give you something you probably won't find in a travel magazine. A breakdown of each ship tier, not just by amenities, but by the financial traps that attach to each one. Because here's the thing. A newer, fancier ship doesn't automatically mean a better deal. In some cases, it means the opposite. Pay close attention to the section on the Oasis class. There's a specific cabin category pricing structure I want to walk you through that cost one family I know, a real family, booked through a legitimate travel agent, an extra $1,400 they never anticipated, and they're not unusual, not even close. Let's work through this. Icon of the Seas gets the most press, so let's address it directly. The ship is genuinely extraordinary. 20,000 passengers on a single vessel, 20 distinct neighborhoods, water slides that belong in a theme park. I'm not dismissing any of that. But Icon has a pricing architecture that is unlike any other ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet. The base fare on Icon sailings tends to come in lower than you'd expect for a ship this new, and that is intentional. Royal Caribbean's internal strategy with Icon leans heavily on what the industry calls bundled upsell conversion, meaning the base ticket is priced to attract the booking, and the revenue is recaptured through packages that feel optional but are practically unavoidable. Specifically, Icon sailings have a higher percentage of included amenities that require pre-booking. Certain dining venues, certain entertainment experiences, and the water park access for the Thrill Island neighborhood all operate on a reservation system where the best windows fill up during a pre-cruise booking period that opens at 90 days out. If you don't pre-book, you're often looking at sold-out slots or onboard day of pricing that's 15 to 30% higher. The fine print here is technically not deceptive. It's disclosed, but it's disclosed in a way that assumes you already know to look for it. First-time cruisers almost universally miss it. My ranking for Icon of the Seas: extraordinary experience, but budget a realistic 20 to 25% above whatever your base fare says if you want to access the things that are actually advertised in the commercials. Now the Oasis class: Wonder, Symphony, Harmony, Allure, and Oasis of the Seas. These 5 ships are structurally similar, but they're not financially identical, and that distinction matters. Wonder of the Seas is the newest of the 5, and it sits in an interesting position. The Central Park and Boardwalk neighborhoods are genuinely some of the most well-designed spaces on any cruise ship anywhere. But here's what most people booking Wonder don't realize until they're looking at their onboard statement. Wonder operates with a higher proportion of fee-generating specialty restaurants relative to complimentary dining than any other Oasis-class ship. There are 18 specialty dining venues on Wonder. If you book a 7-night sailing and eat specialty dining even half the nights, which the ship's design actively encourages, you're potentially adding $300 to $500 per person in dining costs that were never in your original budget. The specific fine print trap with Wonder and the Oasis class more broadly is the guaranteed cabin booking tier. This is offered at a lower price point, and the name makes it sound reassuring. What it actually means is that Royal Caribbean assigns your cabin at their discretion, sometimes as late as 24 to 48 hours before departure, and you waive your right to request a specific cabin or location. For many passengers, this is fine. But the Oasis-class ships are large enough that your cabin assignment genuinely affects your onboard experience. Being assigned to the aft of Deck 3 on a ship with 18 decks is a meaningfully different vacation than being midship on Deck 8. The price difference between a guaranteed cabin and a specifically chosen cabin can look significant at booking, but the experience difference is real. Symphony and Harmony are where I'd actually point a first-time Royal Caribbean passenger, and here's my honest reasoning. Both ships are large enough to offer the full Royal Caribbean product. Multiple pool areas, a flow rider, rock climbing wall, specialty dining. But they're one generation behind Wonder and Icon in terms of the complexity of their fee-generating architecture. The onboard systems are simpler. The number of reservation-required experiences is lower. The ratio of included to extra content is more generous. If you're planning your first Royal Caribbean cruise, and you're on a specific budget, Symphony or Harmony on a repositioning sailing can represent genuinely good value. And the base fare pricing on both ships tends to be more transparent in terms of what the advertised price actually includes. One more Oasis-class note. Allure of the Seas went through a major refurbishment and now carries a higher per night rate without the corresponding increase in included amenities that you'd see on Wonder and original Oasis of the Seas, the oldest ship. In this class, is frequently the cheapest booking option in this tier. That can be legitimate value if you understand that certain technology and design features present on the newer ships simply aren't there. It's not a trap, but it can feel like one if you booked based on Oasis-class marketing without understanding that Oasis-class spans a 14-year design evolution. The Freedom class. Freedom of the Seas, Liberty of the Seas, Independence of the Seas. These ships are genuinely underappreciated in the Royal Caribbean conversation, and I think that's partly because Royal Caribbean's marketing budget is focused entirely on the newer vessels. But from a pure value standpoint, what you pay versus what you get, the Freedom class frequently outperforms ships twice its price. The fee structure on Freedom class sailings tends to be simpler. Fewer reservation-required experiences, a more traditional cruise structure where main dining room meals are fully included, and less aggressive upsell architecture built into the onboard technology. The ships were designed in an era before Royal Caribbean's current revenue model, and that legacy actually works in your favor as a passenger. The fine print issue with Freedom class isn't deceptive, it's just aging infrastructure. Some of the technology aboard these ships is notably dated, and certain amenities you might see advertised in general Royal Caribbean promotional materials either don't exist on Freedom class ships or exist in a reduced form. If you're booking specifically for surfing simulators, laser tag, or the escape room experiences that appear in newer ship advertising, confirm availability on your specific vessel before you commit. Voyager class. Voyager, Explorer, Adventure, Navigator, Mariner of the Seas. These ships are older still, but they introduce the concept of the Royal Promenade, the indoor street that runs the length of the ship. And that design element holds up well. For budget-conscious cruisers, Voyager-class sailings on Caribbean itineraries can come in at base fares 30 to 40% below comparable dates on Oasis-class ships. That difference is real money. The fine print consideration here is similar to Freedom class, but amplified. Know your ship before you book. The Voyager class has been in service long enough that individual ships have had uneven maintenance and refurbishment histories. Navigator of the Seas received a significant Royal Amplified renovation. Adventure of the Seas did as well. Explorer of the Seas has had a more complicated refurbishment timeline. Checking the specific update history of the vessel you're considering takes about 10 minutes online, and it's absolutely worth doing. The Vision class. Vision, Enchantment, Grandeur, Rhapsody, Serenade of the Seas is where the financial picture gets quietly complicated. These are the smallest ships in the active Royal Caribbean fleet, and their base fares can look extremely appealing. But here's what I want you to understand about Vision class pricing. The lower fare is partly a function of the ship offering genuinely fewer amenities, and some passengers don't realize that until they're on board, wondering where the water slides are. Serenade of the Seas. I want to flag specifically because it operates on some itineraries, particularly repositioning routes and Alaska sailings. where the base fare structure is genuinely good value and the fee overlay is light. For the right itinerary on the right sailing date, Serenade can be excellent. But on Caribbean short sailings, the Vision class ships have historically been used for a higher volume of drink package and casino revenue generation, and the onboard environment on a 3 or 4 night Vision class sailing can feel markedly different from the family-friendly atmosphere Royal Caribbean projects in its advertising. The Radiance class deserves a moment of genuine appreciation here. Radiance, Brilliance, Jewel, Serenade of the Seas. These mid-sized ships have floor-to-ceiling windows that make them feel bigger than their tonnage suggests, and more importantly, for what we're discussing, the fee structure on Radiance class sailings is among the most straightforward in the entire fleet. The specialty dining options are fewer, which means the implicit pressure to spend beyond your base fare is lower. The onboard experience is elegant without being engineered to extract additional revenue at every turn. I've heard from passengers who booked Radiance class ships expecting a budget cruise and were pleasantly surprised. I've also heard from passengers who booked expecting the Icon experience and were disappointed. Know what you're booking. The Quantum class, Quantum, Anthem, Ovation, Odyssey, Spectrum of the Seas. These ships represent Royal Caribbean's technology-forward generation, and they introduced several concepts that are now standard on newer ships. But Anthem of the Seas and Odyssey of the Seas, despite being in the same class, have different specialty dining lineups. And Odyssey in particular has a fee structure that leans more aggressively toward pre-purchased dining packages. Spectrum of the Seas, I want to address specifically because it's home-ported in Shanghai and operates under a booking framework that includes some contract terms that differ from the standard Royal Caribbean contract used for North American and European sailings. If you're booking Spectrum through a third-party platform or an international travel agent, the refund and cancellation provisions in your specific contract may not match what you'd find on RoyalCaribbean.com. This isn't a scam. It's a legitimate regional variation, but it's something to verify explicitly before you pay a deposit. Now let's talk about the things that cut across every single ship in this fleet, because the fine print traps I'm about to describe aren't tied to one vessel. They're baked into the Royal Caribbean product itself. Gratuities. Royal Caribbean charges an automatic daily gratuity, currently around $18 to $20.50 per person per day, depending on cabin category. That's disclosed. What's less prominently disclosed is that this amount has increased multiple times in recent years, and the rate applied to your sailing is the rate in effect at the time of sailing, not necessarily the rate that was advertised when you booked. If you book a sailing 8 months out and gratuity rates increase before your departure date, you pay the higher rate. It's in the contract. It's technically disclosed. Most people never see it until it shows up on their onboard account. Cruise with confidence. This policy allows you to cancel a sailing and receive a future cruise credit. It sounds consumer-friendly, and in many cases it is. But there are 3 specific situations where it works less well than advertised. 1. The future cruise credit has an expiration date, and if you can't sail before that date, for any reason, you've lost the value. 2. The credit applies to base fare only, not taxes, fees, or pre-purchased packages. 3. Certain promotional fares booked through third-party travel platforms are governed by that platform's cancellation terms, not Royal Caribbean's, and the platform terms may be materially less flexible. The beverage package question is something every Royal Caribbean passenger faces, and most of them make the decision wrong, in both directions. The math on the premium beverage package is actually fairly simple. Take the package cost, divide by the number of days, and ask whether you realistically drink that value in beverages daily. The average break-even point is typically 4 to 6 alcoholic drinks per person per day, depending on current pricing. If you drink less than that, which is most people, on port-heavy itineraries where you're off the ship much of the day, the package loses money. If you drink more, it saves money. The trap isn't the math. The trap is that Royal Caribbean applies strong pressure to purchase packages before sailing, when the price is lower, at a point when you haven't yet seen the onboard menu prices. Buy only if you've done the math on your actual likely consumption. Specialty dining purchased pre-cruise is almost always priced lower than the same experience purchased on board. The gap ranges from roughly 15 to 20% on most sailings. This is not a secret. It's disclosed, but it's disclosed in the way that favors Royal Caribbean, which is to say it's mentioned briefly in the pre-cruise planner emails and not prominently featured anywhere during the booking process. If you know you want to eat at Shop's Grill or Giovanni's Table on your sailing, buying that reservation before you board will cost you less than buying it at the restaurant host stand. Shore excursions through Royal Caribbean carry a guarantee that if the excursion causes you to miss the ship's departure, the ship will wait or transport you to the next port at Royal Caribbean's expense. That guarantee is real, and it has genuine value in regions with unpredictable infrastructure. What the fine print also says is that by booking through Royal Caribbean's excursion platform, you agree to their specific liability terms regarding the activity itself, and those terms are more limiting than many passengers realize. For adventure excursions, water sports, or any activity with physical risk, read the activity-specific liability clause before you book. This applies across the fleet. Here's where I'd actually land if I were booking tomorrow with a real budget and real expectations. For a family wanting the full modern Royal Caribbean showcase, Symphony of the Seas on a 7-night Eastern Caribbean itinerary with no guaranteed cabin, beverage packages pre-calculated honestly, and specialty dining pre-purchased for 2 nights, that's the version of this product that delivers close to what the advertising promises at a cost that's predictable. For a couple or solo traveler prioritizing value and a cleaner fee structure, Brilliance of the Seas or Serenade on an Alaska or European itinerary is a genuinely undervalued combination. For budget cruisers who understand exactly what they're getting, a Voyager-class post-renovation sailing on a short Caribbean route represents the most honest price-to-experience ratio in the fleet. The fine print doesn't have to trap you. It's the same document for every ship. What changes is whether you read it, and whether you know which parts actually matter. You now have a framework for evaluating any Royal Caribbean booking that most passengers never build until after they've been burned by it at least once. That's not a small thing. A family cruise represents a significant investment for most people, and going in with your eyes open means the experience can match the expectation. Drop a comment and tell me which ship you've sailed or which one you're considering. I read every response, and the conversations in the comments on this kind of video routinely surface details I didn't find in my own research. If you found at least 3 things here that changed how you're thinking about a cruise booking, the like button is genuinely appreciated. And if you want to stay ahead of pricing shifts, contract changes, and industry moves across all the major cruise lines, not just Royal Caribbean, subscribe. I post new research every week, and the next video is already in production. Coming up, the hidden fee comparison across Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian. Same itinerary, same week, radically different final costs.